All right, we are at a racing event, and I and others have reported that Apple is on the verge of acquiring F1 live rights. So I'm just giving you the floor here. Is there an announcement you'd like to make?
No, but we do love F1. We've done the movie, and I've been a huge fan of F1 since I've been a kid. Huge fan.
All right, well, let's hypothetically assume that Apple is acquiring the rights to F1. It would be an epic troll, by the way, if you were here and then you didn't do that in front of the racing audience. But let's say this. Look, we just saw the clip of the Apple movie. How has your relationship with F1 evolved over the years?
I think it started when I was about 10 years old. I grew up in Miami, and when you're 10 years old as I am, Formula One races were not on television here in the U.S. But I went to the library and I discovered this magazine called Auto Week. And there was a page in Auto Week in every one of their issues. The magazine came out weekly, and there was a page in there about F1. And so that's how I discovered the sport. I grew up always loving cars, and Ferrari was really good at that time. So I was a big Ferrari fan because that's what you read. And that's how it all started. And over time, I was very lucky to be a part of, I'm on the board of Ferrari. I've been there for a long time. And so I got the insider view of Formula One from that point of view. Then we had the opportunity to build the movie. Knew Lewis. Having Lewis involved in the movie, I knew was going to make it really epic from a real point of view. I think one of the challenges when you're trying to do something like this is how do you make it real? And one of the things that I don't think people appreciated as much is what incredible athletes Formula One drivers are, what it takes to race. When you watch on television, it kind of looks like they're on a Sunday drive. You can't feel the G-force. You can't do that. So we started working on technology with Formula One to put the cameras in the cars in the right place. So when you watch the movie, it feels like you're actually in. What does it feel like to be in a Formula One car? And I think it definitely did that. The attention to detail in the movie is incredible. Thanks to Lewis. I always say everything that happened in that movie has happened in a race. There's nothing in there, including everybody jokes around, oh, like you put that. If you haven't seen the movie, please go see it. But hopefully you have. It's the biggest sport movie of all time, by the way. Brad Pitt's biggest movie of all time. But there's a scene in there at the end where there's a red flag, and that's how he can win the race. And everybody's like, oh, that's crazy. That would never happen. Well, that's how Max Verstappen won a world championship. So I've had a lot of history with Formula One, and Stefano, who's the CEO of Formula One, is a very, very dear friend. I knew him back when he was working at Ferrari, and then later on at Lamborghini, and now at Formula One. So I have a long history with it.
Yeah, the takeaway from the movie for me was there are so many different ways to game this sport that, there's so many loopholes in it that, maybe F1 wants to clear up some of that. It was sort of poking at it, I thought, a little bit too. But look, assuming, again, that the reporting is correct and that you're about to spend, let's say, $140, $150 million per year on F1, it wasn't long ago that F1 rights sold for I think it was $4 million, maybe 12 years ago to NBC. Where has all the value come from? It's not all Drive to Survive.
No, look, I think in the U.S., everyone talks about how big Formula One is now. And the reality is because it was nowhere. And so if you're nowhere, it's gotten huge. But the truth is, it's not huge yet.
It's only about 1 million people or so that watch a given race.
That's right. And so when you compare it from a sports point of view, that's pretty tiny. So there's a huge potential for the sport. And when you look at it, it's a sport that's global. It's a sport that it's the only sport in the world that I can recall that where the actual events take place everywhere in the world, not in a single place. The athletes, they're incredible athletes. There is as what they can do, very few other athletes can do. So that's another piece of it. You have those incredible brands, and I love Cadillac coming on board. So you have all these brands of cars that are involved in it. You have these. It's much more than just driving now. There's a whole social component, culture component. with the athletes themselves. Heck, even the team principals have become, movie stars or TV stars now. I know Toto's coming in later. We were having dinner last night in Soho, and he gets stopped all the time for photos. And everybody's like, well, go way back. No, like 5 years ago, nobody would know who Toto was as he was walking down, Soho. Now not everyone, but tons of people do know. So I think there's a huge potential for the sport in the U.S. specifically.
What can Apple do to improve the viewing experience? I mean, you've dabbled now. Are there certain lessons you can take from your partnership with MLS, for instance?
Yeah, we learned a lot with Major League Baseball and MLS. I mean, one of the first things, which is kind of obvious, but you'd be surprised if you've never watched a Major League Baseball game or an MLS game on Apple on our service. The first thing you notice is the quality. And you'd say, well, what do you mean the quality? Or, you're 4K, everybody else is 4K, or any of that standpoint. Everybody else compresses their video quite a bit. And so when you watch one of our games, you're like, well, wait a second, why does this look better than anything I've ever seen? So when you watch a Major League Baseball game, you've never seen that at that level. So we've done that. We've put cameras in places that have never been on the umpire. We did one cool thing. We put it on a foul pole with an iPhone. So for the first time ever, a couple months ago, we had the iPhone actually live broadcasting from a baseball game. And we put the iPhone on the foul pole. Obviously, you can never put a camera there or other places. And you could not tell. The only way you could tell is because we put a bug on the bottom saying, hey, this is being broadcast by an iPhone. Imagine why we would do that. But so we've done a lot of innovative things. And I think Formula One can do that in spades because there's so much data that happens in Formula One. There's all the radio broadcasts. There's all the different teams that you want to follow or drivers. So there's all kinds of capabilities, but it's hard to do today.
How important is the Vision Pro to your desire for sports rights? Because I can certainly imagine a world where you put that device on and somehow, if you're in the car to some degree, that would revolutionize the viewing experience.
Look, there's a third party, actually. I think one of the coolest apps that ever happened on Vision Pro was a small developer decided to do this for Formula One. And so what he did is he creates the tracks in 3 dimensions and all the cars you can follow on the track. And obviously you've got this whole scene, and then you've got all the videos playing of the cars that you want to follow, the data one, and so it gives you this whole experience. Now, obviously it's not being recorded yet in a virtual mode. And so that's right. It'll be the first time. We did this with Brad Pitt. We took one of the laps and the cameras are pretty big. So right now, these virtual cameras, you're not going to see them in a race yet, but you'll be able to put them around the track to really, for the first time, actually get even a closer experience as to what does it take to be in a rocket, because the G-force that they take is more than an astronaut takes when they're going up to space. So it's pretty crazy.
Is the partnership between Apple and F1, or even where it could go, based on the linking of high-end branding between Apple and F1? It seems like there's a natural connection there. And I'm curious, if that's the case, does F1 kind of stand alone in the broader scope of motorsports as something that would be keenly Apple-specific?
Well, I think one of the things that we love about motorsports is the amount of technology involved in it. And obviously, Formula One is the epitome of that. So that's a fun thing that ties to us, which is the combination. It's not just technology. There's a human involved in this. We were in this AI space and all of that stuff, but the human part is the key to the whole thing. Max Verstappen is the one who wins the race, and Orlando or Oscar, but at the same time, there's a level of technology that's off the charts, and so that's near and dear to our heart. It's who we are and what we try to do, and so I love that part of Formula One.
I want to talk about Apple's sports strategy a little bit more broadly. You have said that there has never been a better time and never been a worse time to be a sports fan right now. What did you mean by that?
It's never been a better time because, let's face it, every sport in the world is available in some fashion or another to watch. That wasn't the case, not that many years back. And so that's amazing, right? That we can get access to any sport. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, we can watch the dart championships live. The problem, though, is we all know we can all watch everything, but it's very hard to find. You have to sign up for, 1,200 subscriptions around them. And if you're traveling, you're screwed. And it's crazy. Like, I travel a lot. It's like I want to watch an NFL game and I'm sitting in London, and it's like, when I want to do that, I have to find a way to subscribe to a thing in London, but I can't really subscribe because I don't have an English credit card to do the I mean, it's just idiotic. So, like, I always thought, like, what's the analogy of that? Well, we do a show called The Morning Show, and The Morning Show is filmed here in New York. And so the way we should do that is we should only let people in New York watch The Morning Show. And so it's not a great experience for customers. And if you're a sports fan, I'm a huge sports fan. I went to Duke, for example. I'm a huge Duke basketball. I want to watch the Duke game. I don't care what channel it's on. I don't care what it is. And everyone knows I'm a huge Duke fan. And my phone certainly knows I'm a huge Duke fan. And so it's really easy to give it to me, but it sucks.
So on the subscription front, what is the solution?
Well, look, in a way, we've gone backwards because you used to buy one subscription, your cable subscription, and you got, pretty much everything they had. Now, like I said, there's so many different subscriptions. So I think that needs to be fixed. You can't ask people to subscribe to,
So how do you fix that? You opt into a bundle of streaming services?
Look, I don't have all the answers from that standpoint. I think, we fixed it with MLS. Because
sort of, because you're also contributing to the problem, right? Now, if I want to watch MLS, I've got to subscribe to Apple TV. If it was just on ESPN, I wouldn't have to do that.
That's right. That's you got to have some more bundles from that standpoint. Everything being single is a problem, but I think having a single place where there are no blackouts, no matter where you are in the world, anyone can buy it from that standpoint. You can watch any game. It's easy to switch back and forth from that standpoint. Things, picture in picture has been around forever, but it's really hard to do if they let you do it at all. But in most cases, they can't let you do it because of the rights issues. I mean, this is pretty basic stuff that I think can grow the sport. And I think one of the concerns that you see is, when I was a kid, you were competing against what? I had, 5 TV channels or whatever there is from that standpoint. Now, if you're a kid growing up today and you want people to watch your sport, there's a lot of competition for that, eyes. And so I think the bar is really high. And I think if we want people to watch games and we want all of sports to grow, I think some of these things need to be fixed.
There seems to me to be a little bit of a tension in that. I know your stated strategy with sports is that you want, like the MLS, you want all the rights. You want it globally. You want the whole package. You don't want to compete for just sort of chunks of sports, although that is what you do with baseball.
Yeah, I would say it's slightly differently. I think it's okay. There are sports where that's not going to happen.
Right.
Or not going to happen anytime soon.
Exactly. It's not going to happen with basketball. It's not going to happen with football. It's not going
to happen with the NFL.
Right.
Let's just start with
pretty much with sports in the U.S. That's not going to happen. To me, that's a tension, right?
But that doesn't mean that a league or a sport could demand its partners to work together, for example, to provide a better experience. Right now, that's not the case. And so I think you have to think outside the box, right? So yeah, there are certain things that are not going to happen. But again, let's put the sports fan front and center. That's the customer, that's the fan, that's who we're trying to address. What do they want?
Get a little more specific with me. Hypothetically, a league needs to force its partners to work together. What do you mean by that?
Access, so that you can go from one to the other. Blackouts is another one, right? That happens because of that. And so there's a lot of different things. It's if I want to get you to a better game from that standpoint, I'm not going to do that if I have to switch from one broadcast to another. But that's in the interests of a sports league. And so I think, I don't have all the answers. I've got ideas, as you can see, but it doesn't really matter. What you want is you want to go and say, what does a sport fan want? So pick a sport. What do you want? And then if you own or you're responsible, then you got to go figure out ways to address that.
So what you're saying is, if you're a league, maybe you sell a package of all of your games together, that type of thing?
That's a possibility. That's one of the possibilities. The other possibilities, you can do the things that if I subscribe, if I'm a league and I have two partners, for example, and I happen to subscribe to two partners, it should be very easy for me to go between them and do all kinds of things between them and do picture in picture but I can't. And so I think that, yeah, there are definitely solutions to some of these. It's harder. But that's why we're all here, to make hard problems.
And so just take me behind the curtain a little bit. When you're having discussions with leagues, are you bringing up these ideas and either the league itself or other media partners are saying, no, thanks?
I think, look, it's a complicated business. These are big companies, successful companies around. And so, sure, I bring up ideas. Most of my ideas have to do with being a huge sports fan. It's what I want as a fan. So I'm not trying to sell something that's in the interest of Apple. I think what we do is great, but we're trying to address the sports fan. And so that's where the ideas or the thoughts come from.
Well, given that you're a huge sports fan today, put F1 aside, you have a little sliver of Major League Baseball and you have MLS. Do you want to own many more sports rights?
I think, again, if we can do the kinds of things that we want to do, yes, the answer is yes, we do. If we can offer things that are unique and special that lets us really do the level of differentiation, innovation that we would like to do, then the answer is yes. But these things are, they're complicated. Just even worldwide rights are complicated.
An ESPN executive once told me that you would love to buy ESPN. Is that true?
I love Bob Iger is a dear friend at Disney. He's a great company, and ESPN I'm a huge fan of ESPN as a sports fan. But at Apple, we like doing things ourselves. We like building things. We start generally from scratch and build, and that takes a little longer from that standpoint. But I think it lets us do things that are unique and special.
Apple Car, is that still on the table at all?
You like all these rumors? No.
Surrounded by cars, so that would be something you could just throw the Apple name on. No. We like what we're focused on. Cars are great. They're a hobby that I have that I love to do. So it's great personally. I'm just curious. We saw the racing video. Have you raced a Formula One racing car before? No, but that's a good idea. Brad did. He went after the movie was done. He went to Austin, and because he's definitely caught the bug. I have not. I've done a Formula Ford car, but those are a lot slower. Like I said, the athletes that they are. The truth is, I really can't drive a Formula One car. I don't have the talent or the skill set to do that, and so I could drive it slowly, I'm sure, but. They don't even work very well slowly. I know what would happen when they put me in a Formula One car, and the first thing that happens is when it's time to go and sputter, and I'll be stuck, and then you have to bring the starter back out to start it. But someday maybe, who knows? You touched on it a little bit, but to bring this back to racing, help me envision where we're headed in terms of where you think the viewing experience can go for racing. You mentioned there's new camera angles in the car, the picture quality is better, but I'd imagine you've thought about it even more intently than that. Stay tuned. Maybe someday we'll be able to give you some more. Well, I would imagine that day may be coming soon. I would hope that you'll maybe have some more announcements on that front soon. Is this as you look at the current sports landscape, there's only so many sports you can buy in the way that you want to buy them, right? There's only you mentioned that. Most of the leagues don't allow you to acquire rights in the way you're looking to acquire them.
Right.
So that leads you to one of two things. You either need to compromise, which you did it for baseball.
We didn't. Just to be clear, we won't compromise. We don't have to be.
But you don't own the global rights to baseball.
No, we didn't. But you had to start somewhere to learn a little bit about what it takes to broadcast before you decide to take on a whole league and broadcast worldwide. So
baseball was a test.
It was a test for us. Now, we've enjoyed it and we've done a great job for them. But was never our intent, and that's not the reason we got into baseball. We got into baseball with them with some greater visions and thoughts that we had with them, and who knows, they might come true someday. It takes longer on that front, but no, we don't. We're not going to compromise. We don't have to do sports the way that they are. There's plenty of people doing that, so the world doesn't need us to do that. And so our view around it is, if we can do something unique, then we'll do it. If not, then we'll let it stay the way it is.
But there are, I guess what I'm saying is that definitionally, you're kind of limited in the sports rights you can buy to do it the way you want to do it, correct?
I think that's true today. But we are in it for the long run. We're in, we expect to be around for a while. And so the world, has this habit of changing relatively fast at times when you least expect it. And so right now, I'm not expecting it. I agree with you, but who the heck knows? What I do know, and I'll go back, I see some nodding heads when I look at the crowd. I mean, there's a lot of sports fans out there, and I think they want some of these changes. And so that's the best thing. And if fans want it, then, it'll get figured out.
Maybe you can be the next commissioner of one of these leagues, right? That's a way forward. Eddy Cue, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex.